Hi, welcome to week 10 of this flexibility and mobility program, where in this final third we're talking about loaded stretching, loaded mobility, where we are engaging our muscles at end range to help increase the strength and capacity of our tissues in that extra range that we've created through our stretching, through our METs. Last week I did 3 lower body movements that were all reasonably hard work, and hopefully you've got on okay with those. This week I'm going to introduce another few lower body movements, and then next week we'll move on to upper body before going into adding them all together for a final routine. So this week we're going to start with another exercise that you'll be familiar with, but with a twist. So we're going to start with Pigeon Pose, but this is going to be active Pigeon Pose. So I'm going to try and explain as we go along what it is that I'm looking for you to be doing, and take your time, practice it. These are hard work. As I said before, if you get a bit of a sweat on, absolutely fine. I probably will do. So let's have a look at Pigeon Pose. Okay, so for a quick refresher of what Pigeon Pose is when it comes to a static stretch, we take one leg, we bring it in front of us, we have our other leg backwards, nice and straight, and we're coming down and we're just relaxing into a stretch where our backside is feeling stretched. Now for active pigeon, it's a very similar setup, except we want to be in a position where we can actually keep our foot on the floor, our bent foot on the floor, but we want to be able to raise our knee off the ground by working the muscles in our backside predominantly. Now your hands will be there for some support, and by definition will be taking some of your body weight. But what I want you to try and do is maybe start off with, 70% of your body weight through your hands if you can, and just get used to what it feels like to be pressing this foot into the floor and lifting this knee off the floor, engaging those butt muscles. And as you get used to that movement, I want you to try and move your body in such a way that you've got less weight in your hands and more weight going through your leg, so that you're actually having to work pretty hard to get that movement in the hip. Okay? And so for active pigeon, what we're trying to do, and obviously you can see I'm relatively sat up at the moment, so for me, this isn't particularly much of a stretch. I need to come a lot further forward for that stretch. But I'm going to start like this so I can kind of practice using those muscles against a little bit of body weight, getting my knee up and my hips moving. I'm then going to move forward a bit so I've got more of a stretch to begin with. So I'm working in a greater range for my hip. And then I'm going to start really working. You'll see my rear knee is coming off the floor now. And that is active pigeon. So I'm now going to switch legs and we're going to do it on the other side. So we'll start off relatively low level stretch. And then I'm going to go into a greater range and start working in that greater range. So about 5 repetitions in each of the ranges that you can find yourself into. And like I say, it's meant to be hard work, but it's not meant to be painful. And that's active pigeon. So the next one we're going to look at, again, active around the hip, is known as Shin Boxes. That's how I know it. There may be plenty of other names for these exercises out there. I'm sure there are. Yeah, with Shin Boxes, what we're going to do is we're going to set ourselves up on the floor where our legs, as best we can, depending on your current level of flexibility, are roughly 90 degrees angles. So 90 degree hip to knee, then 90 degree knee down to foot, and then your other leg is going to be at about 90 degrees from you, and then a 90 degree bend in your knee again. If you need to, you can obviously have slightly smaller angles than 90 degrees. That's perfectly fine to start with. We're working on mobility and flexibility. It will come through practice. Now you'll notice at the moment I'm actually sitting up unsupported, but I'm not exactly level. Again, it's a little bit to do with hip mobility. It's a little bit to do with your own anatomy, quite frankly. There are certain positions that some people can get into that other people can't because our bones are different shapes. Okay, so don't worry quite how you're sitting at the moment. Ideally, you'd be trying to get both sit bones, both bony bits in your bum towards the floor. That's where we're trying to kind of imagine we're getting to. We may never get there, and that's totally fine. You may even at this point be thinking, well, actually, I've got to use a hand to hold myself up at this point. During setup, that's fine. We're going to try and move away from using the hand once we actually get into the exercise. So what is the exercise? Well, the exercise is from this position to be able to come up into an up kneeling position without using our hands, but using our legs. So we're not using our hands, we're using our legs. Come up into an up position, come back down again in controlled, not letting ourselves fall, and then just letting our bums kiss the floor before coming back up again. We're not settling back into a seated position. We're not releasing any of the tension we're going to build up. So I'll explain, I'll try and show from a few different angles as we go. So we're in our seated position. We've got our legs vaguely 90 degrees or where we can get to at the moment. And then we're going to come up. Okay, so now I'm up and my legs have stayed in the same place. I've essentially just used my hips. I'm forcing my hips forward, get a nice stretch at the front. And then I'm going to control myself coming down, kiss the floor, and come straight back up again. I'm going to come down, I'm going to kiss the floor and come back up again. And this is working the hips in quite an extreme range. Extreme. In a range that is greater than we would normally work the hips, which means they're going to feel like they're working quite hard, relatively speaking. And we're going to do about 5 reps. And that's one side. Now, if you're finding that particularly easy and comfortable, particularly in the up position, you can go up and add a twist, come back down, kiss, come back up, twist, come back down, kiss, come back up, twist. So at no point during that lowering phase, that kissing my bum to the floor stage, am I just going down and letting myself sit. Okay, I'm retaining tension, I'm working hard all the way through. I'm going to switch sides and I'm going to change angle as well, so hopefully you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. So my legs are at 90. Because of differences in the flexibility of my hips, I'm finding it a little bit harder to not lean on the floor this way round. Perfectly normal for me, it'll be perfectly normal for you if that's what you find. But using my hands to counterbalance myself to get me started, I'm going to lift up, I'm going to come down, I'm going to kiss the floor and come back up again. I'm going to kiss the floor and come back up again. Kiss the floor, come back up again. I'll admit I've lost count, so I'll do one more. If you want, you can do these, as I said, as a rotation, which will add a little bit more stretch at each end of range. And that's shin boxes. All right, so one common move, exercise, position that we haven't really discussed at all, and quite intentionally during this series, is the squat. And the reason for that is because the squat is made out to be so complex and so overblown that I haven't really wanted to dive into it into much detail. But we're going to address a little bit of it today because we can use the general position again as another nice hip mobility, hip opener kind of exercise. Now, in brief, everyone's squat is different. At this stage, it really doesn't matter whether your heels are touching the floor or not, so long as they're kind of actively trying to get towards the floor. Yes, you can use props to help keep your heels off the floor if you need to, you know, a block behind you, or in my case, I'm going to use this bar that I've got just to help with my heels. Doesn't particularly matter which way your knees face or which way your feet are facing at this point. We're not doing this under any significant load. And like I said, your squat, to a certain extent, it's a bit like your fingerprint. Everyone's is a little bit different because our bodies are different. Our shapes of our hips, the lengths of our bones. We can go into the squat in loads and loads of detail. I'm not going to today, but for all intents and purposes, your squat will be your squat, and all we're looking for is an element of mobility and stretch. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to get ourselves into some form of squat position. Mine looks horrendous. I'm okay with that. For me, I find it easier to do a reasonable looking deep squat actually when I'm under some load, under sort of a barbell. I find it quite difficult to get into a nice looking squat under no load. So mine's going to look a bit like a sumo squat today, wide feet turned out. That's absolutely fine. If yours looks like that, then kudos. If yours looks really, really neat and tidy and nice, then I'm only a little jealous. But what we're going to use the squat as a way of just loading up our hips today. So I'm going to have my heels on the bar in order to just help me get into a bit of a nicer looking squat position. You can do exactly the same. You can have a couple of books, just something that's not going to slip out of the way. But because we're not doing this under load, we're not too worried. We're going to come down into our squat position, whatever that means for you. And then, there we go, told you, turned out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bias our weight to one foot, and we're just going to use either our elbow or our hand, and we're just going to do a little bit of wiggling of one of our hips. So we're under load at the moment because we're squatted, and we're just helping take our hips to slightly further ranges under that load. And once we've done a little bit of hip wiggling both sides, we're going to come down and open up our hips completely, and then we're just going to hold it there. You might need to come up and take a break. Come back down into our squat. We're going to open up our hips and do a little bit of movement. Palms together is quite nice. If you can go further, with your knuckles, then do so. And that's just a nice little routine to kind of start opening up the hips in a bit of a squat position. All right, that is it for week 10. So we have covered a few more lower body loaded mobility exercises. I found it pretty warm today, considering it's winter whilst I'm recording this. I've now got the windows open and a slight glisten on my forehead. So embrace the fact that these are hard work. And rest appropriately afterwards. Mix them in appropriately, particularly if you're still doing the strength workouts and the yoga workouts that are available to you. But this is the way that we really start to solidify some of those mobility gains, by encouraging the body to strengthen in those new ranges. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in week 11.